What effect does porn and other compulsive behaviors have on our wives? And how do they affect our own recovery and healing in the journey through the pain our actions have brought into the relationship? Today on Finding Traction, we talk about relational pain and how to find healing.
Guys ready?
When it comes to porn, are you stuck, spinning out, or slipping backwards in your life? If so, then welcome to the Finding Traction podcast, a show dedicated to those who are looking to gain recovery momentum away from porn and toward the life and relationships they have always hoped for. Now, here's your host, Vern Tomke.
Well, today I want to talk about our relationships. You know, as guys begin to get a hold of me and they tell me about their story with sexual brokenness, I'm fully aware that they're really only just one side of the recovery equation. You know, some guys haven't made a full disclosure. Some guys have been caught. I talked to a guy a couple days ago who thought his wife was working a double shift, and lo and behold, she was only working a single shift. So you can imagine. And some guys have tried disclosure, and now they have a devastated, angry, hurt partner, and they're at a loss what to do. They're trying to figure out their own journey and have no idea how to help their partners, especially since they're the one who hurt their partners. For all of that, I wanted to bring today a couple onto our podcast from Southern California to talk about betrayal and healing. Now, I first heard Clinton and Charity's story on their podcast, Restored to More, and they've graciously agreed to come onto the podcast. You can also watch us on YouTube. So welcome to the podcast, Clinton and Charity Munoz.
Hey, thank you so much, Vern, for having us. We are excited to share our story. We love adding value, and we are grateful to be here. So thank you so much. The privilege is ours.
Now, did I pronounce your last name right?
That was great. Yeah.
Okay.
Munoz is how you say it. A little tilde and N on the end, but
okay.
I've heard a lot worse, so that was good.
I tried. I'm married to a half French Canadian, so I've been known to butcher many languages all at once. So welcome to the podcast. And
thank you.
It's great to have you guys. And I thought maybe we would just start a little bit, Clinton, by having you share a little bit of your story with porn, other unwanted sexual behaviors, and just a little bit, maybe kind of bring it up to your marriage point, just kind of the early part of how you tried to get free from it, and maybe any, unhelpful advice you got along the way.
Yeah. My relationship with porn. So it started at 11 years old. I was just a curious kid. I was shown a Sports Illustrated magazine, and it was my buddy's magazine. So he took it home after we looked at it, and I wanted to see more of that. And so I went online and I looked up, seemingly, just kind of curious, like I looked up hot girls, and I thought I would see more of what I saw. And unfortunately, as people know, if they've ever dabbled with this area, it was an old school computer, and about 25 windows popped up extremely rapidly on my computer. And it was the most graphic thing I had ever seen in my life. Unfortunately, my brother, 4 years younger, was there to see it. And I was traumatized immediately just traumatized at what I saw and the shame. And I got out of it as fast as it popped up. But even the time it takes to close 25 windows on an old school computer, you can't not take it in. And so that began, I don't really know how it took hold so fast, but I know that the shame took hold, and it was a way out. And pretty soon it became just a way to cope with my emotions. I moved around a lot when I was a kid, and it was hard for me. I was in a season of trying to make some new friendships. And I think it was the one thing that pornography just allowed me to cope with what was going on in my life and the lack of being really wanted and the highs and lows of life. And so very quickly, unfortunately, it became a serious addiction, even at the age of 12 and 13, where I was viewing it multiple times a day and stealing magazines from places. And that progressed over time. And so for me, I really wasn't the kid that was, sexually molested in any way. I had a good relationship with people, with adults, with my parents, but I just believe even the trauma that was induced from seeing something like that, and the triggers that it was like, wow, I can go here for this. I can find a way to release drugs in my brain that feel good, and it does feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that momentary feeling of feeling wanted or feeling important or feeling loved, that I think I was more addicted to that than I was the images or the masturbation that came alongside of it. And so it progressed, and then it came to my marriage, and it got worse when I got married. I believe that throughout that time I developed an intimacy disorder. I really didn't know how to be intimate with other guys, and obviously not intimate sexually, but intimate just being known and knowing other people. I did like to know other people, but I rarely would be totally open with my own stuff, because I believed that if they really knew what was going on, I wouldn't be accepted or loved or cared for. And so that just kind of progressed.
Can I go back for a sec? Because I want to, obviously at some point, I think you had said to me earlier, you had a faith background in a previous conversation. At some point you knew early on that this was not something you wanted in your life or you felt bad about. You made attempts going through your high school years and into your early adult years, even before marriage, to get this out of your life. So obviously that was not successful, or you got bad advice or poorly helped. Just briefly, because so many people, would identify with that unsuccessful attempts to get free. How did that play out for you, or bad advice or whatever?
Yeah. One of our biggest passions today is educating leaders in the church, whether they're small group leaders or they're junior high or high school leaders, or they're even head pastors of churches, because the advice that we got as a couple, and then I got even as a young boy, it was well-meaning advice. They meant good intentions, but the first time I ever opened up to my youth pastor about this was basically just gave me a book to read and said, man, just keep pressing into Jesus and put up a block and stop doing it, and so I was like, okay, thanks. And I was like 12, so I was like, man, I must be really messed up here, and then I went to other leaders in the church and people that I respected, men of character. They were godly men. There's no question about that. Yeah. And they basically said, memorize scripture, or, just put up a block. There's so many blocks out there. Make sure you have a block on your computer. And I just think that most leaders in the church don't understand the depths of an addiction. And it doesn't mean that we're going to be addicts forever. Yeah. I don't believe that. But I do believe that when we use something so often that we can't say no to it, there is something going on deeper that a block on a computer won't fix, right? We need to address the roots of what's going on.
Yeah, and that reminds me of, I did a podcast on the myths of my recovery, and a number of M's. One of them was just memorization. I was great at memorization, and I still remember those verses I memorized. And or the moral pathway. You just need to really want it, or just really hate it, all that kind of well-meaning advice. So obviously, you'd already mentioned that you brought that into your marriage. I imagine one of the myths was you probably thought that marriage would usher this out of your life. Did you buy into that one as well, Clinton?
I think absolutely every guy believes like we're gonna have sex all day, man. And it's so wrong to think that, right? I look back and I'm like, man, what was I thinking? And no one told me that. No one ever said, just get married, dude. You have an issue, just get married. No one ever told me that. So I'm thankful that wasn't the solution I was told. But intrinsically, I did believe that because we would have sex all the time, or it would solve the addiction. But again, now knowing what I know, that doesn't solve underlying issues that caused it.
Absolutely. Well, Charity, obviously you met this guy and you probably thought, man, this is going to be great. This is the life I've always wanted. And somewhere along the line, you discovered this man that you never knew about. Tell me a little bit about what it was like and how you discovered what was going on with him, and kind of how that people tried to help you, helpfully or unhelpfully in the process. Yeah.
So I had known in the beginning a little bit like he had struggled with it, you know, But there wasn't a depth of talk of how serious and the severity of it was and what it led to in his life. And so
not that the whole idea of minimizing our thing going into marriage. Yeah. Because it's going to go away anyways, Charity. So we can minimize it. So
it's not a very good line on the resume. Let me tell you that. It's just not, you know.
And so I remember talking about it with some women in the beginning saying like, hey, like, you know, I found this online or whatever. And I remember just them saying like, oh, well, Charity, like everybody, all guys do it. Like, you know, don't be surprised. Just, you know, talk to him about it and hopefully he'll just stop. And so it just really made me feel like, okay, like we'll just have a conversation. He'll stop and it'll be over. And so we did. But then it like, I kept on finding out. And so because of that advice, then it made me feel uncomfortable to want to share it anymore because it was like, well, they do it anyways. And so then I started putting the blame on me thinking that, well, maybe our conversation wasn't good enough. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not worthy enough. And so then later on in our marriage, when bigger discovery was found with massage parlors and strip clubs and everything like that, it was way more severe. And so I realized, okay, we need to talk actually like get some serious help. And unfortunately, some of the advice that we had received, again, good intentions, their advice just was, hey, wear him out. And for me, then that makes me feel like I can fix the problem.
Right.
And that I am the issue to the problem. So we did that. And it was only making the problem worse because it was an intimacy disorder. Right. And so anytime we did do that, then let's say a couple hours went by, he acted out and he's confused why he just did that. I'm confused why he just did that. I'm not feeling worthy enough. I'm feeling like I need to change everything about me. And so now I'm even in more shame because now I'm thinking, well, there's really something wrong with me because I'm not fixing the issue. And now I don't even know who to talk to about this because their advice to me isn't working. And so there's just so much shame on my end. There's so much shame on his end. And we just we're like, okay, well, I guess it's a fend for ourselves. He was told memorize scripture, block things. And I think, you know, now what we've learned is you can't give one medicine to everyone. You know, if people are coming to you and you're a doctor, you know, you're not just going to continue to give people the flu medicine. And, you know, even if they have, what if there's something else going on? Maybe they're having digestive disorders or symptoms and they're having celiac. You're not going to say, well, you have the flu. You know, your stomach issues is from the flu. So let's continue to give you flu medicine like we've given to everybody else. That's just not going to.
I like that. That's good.
That's not going to work and solve the issue. And I think that's unfortunately what's just happening to us is people were giving us the same thing that they thought would fix it and it wasn't. And so we were just left feeling so alone, hopeless. And what we've come to realize is we really, our biggest goal and hope is that people would just assess the situation, assess how severe is the problem. Was it just a one-time thing? Why are they looking at it? How often is it? Are they doing it for coping reasons? How many times a day? How many times a week? Have they done more things outside of pornography? Because if it is, then we're going to treat you differently, right? There's different ways to treat somebody with either porn, addiction, intimacy disorder. And I wish that somebody would have done that for us because it took us a way longer process of healing. But it's our story. And now it's what gets us excited and wants to talk to other people about.
Well, and in other words, you know, you'd wish somebody had asked you some good diagnostic questions. And I think the reason why I'm so excited to hear from you, Charity, is I spend so much time talking to guys and we know our actions are having an effect on our wives or our partners. Totally. But I would love if you would just share, because I don't think sometimes guys realize the depths of the effects that our behaviors are having. And I'd encourage everyone to go to your podcast because you share in a lot more detail. Your story and then Clinton's story. Your story actually comes first, which I thought is really neat the way you did it. But can you describe a little bit of the emotional, physiological effects that this had on you? Because it was not a pretty sight in terms of what you were going through.
Totally. So, it was, you know, I mean, you can only go through so much, just trigger after trigger, him telling me he's going to change, me finding it out, you know, finding it out, and you start becoming numb. And sooner rather than later, what started to end up happening is I just kept on stuffing stuff inside and started really medicating all my pain. And because I didn't really feel like I had anywhere to run. And I honestly, at the time, didn't even know that it was affecting me.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of women think that this isn't actually affecting them, that it's their problem, their issue. Like, hey, fix him. He's the one with the problem. Like, get him to a group, get him to a program, get him to therapy. And I think a lot of women don't realize the damage that's doing to them, psychologically, physically, everything. And so that's another huge thing that we're passionate about, is helping women realize. I want to give an analogy because I think people can resonate with this. It's as if Clinton and I were driving. We got into a really bad accident. Clinton was driving. He flew out of the car window, and now he's externally bleeding from his body. The medics take him. He goes into emergency. They're doing surgery on him.
Yep.
Well, I'm still in the car. I am no sign of bleeding, no sign of broken bones. So they look at me and they say, hey, do you want to go to the hospital? And I say, no, I'm good. Thank you. I think I'm fine. Like, it's just him. He's the one bleeding. So fix him, help him. Well, little do I know that I actually have internal bleeding inside of my brain. And so I think that's the exact same thing, is there is internal consequences for his actions and the things that had happened. And if we don't get help, then unfortunately, then we are going to be in the hospital on the same thing, on a medical bed, both in the hospital getting individual work done. And that's what's going to happen. You're either going to admit in the process that what they're doing is affecting you emotionally, physically, spiritually, everything, or what happened to me was I didn't know that I had internal bleeding. Then all of a sudden I dropped down to a really scary weight. And I have 3 kids, and the weight that I was at, I hadn't been that weight since a sophomore in high school. I was starting to develop an eating disorder because I could control it. I couldn't control his addiction. I couldn't control his restoration process. So for me, the only thing I knew that I could control was my eating. And so I started to do that. And then I started losing tons of hair. Stress, you lose dramatic amounts of hair when you're under a lot of stress. And I started having a lot of bald spots, and I really started becoming depressed and having really bad sciatic nerve pain. I started waking up crying, depressed, lifeless, hopeless. And I remember just getting to a place where my parents and family members weren't starting to notice, and they looked at me and were just like, hey, like, I think something's wrong. Like, can you please share, like, what's going on inside your home? Like, are you okay? What's going on? Because the outward appearance was starting to happen. You know, when you push too many things into a toothpaste bottle, you squeeze out under pressure, what happens? It's going to come out. And so it was starting to come out whether I liked it or not. And so that's when I realized, okay, the internal bleeding is now coming out. I'm in danger. I'm probably going to have a heart attack. No joke. If I do not, if I want to live, I need to get this figured out. And so that's when I was like, okay, Clinton, I need to start being open up. I need to open up to some safe people. I need to get help myself. I didn't realize the damage that I had on me. And then I started individually doing my own work.
Yeah. And I love that car accident analogy, because it's like your whole body is shut down. I mean, how many times have we heard from, insurance people, even if you feel good after an accident, it's like the next day you can't get out of bed. Your whole body, and that whole reaction, that's just the physical reaction.
Yes.
Referring to everything else going on with you.
Oh, yeah.
And I love the way that you guys describe in your podcast, because it's so honest, because we always think, okay, when you got to that point, then you guys just set out a course and a trajectory, and okay, that it was just like step after step climbing the mountain and getting where you were. But really, you describe, your recovery, restoration, it wasn't a straight line. In fact, I think you described, once you guys both realized we both seriously need help, I think you said, if I remember right, in fact, things got worse before they got better. Talk to me a little bit about that. I apparently FDR said things will get worse and worse before they get better and better, to quote a politician. But anyways.
So true.
I can talk from my side. It wasn't that the addiction got worse. So I like to clarify that, because the addiction did not get worse before it got better. When you remove the very drug that I used my whole life to cope with life, well, unfortunately, I was just faced with life. And life is not easy. Life on life terms, as they say in AA. That's right. That's what my therapist said that all the time. Are you, learning how to do life on life's terms? And and I just was a mess. Oh my goodness. I think it's very common for most guys to replace one addiction with another. And it is. It is common. Not that I think. And so most guys that unfortunately, they remove sex in their life, and they have eating disorders, or they pick up drinking, or they pick up smoking, or they pick up other unhealthy behaviors. Sometimes there are actually healthy things they do, which is awesome. That's a great way to cope with life, going and working out, or for me, it's surfing or different things we do. And those are healthy things, as long as we don't need them like
or we do, but then we do them to excess and they damage our life in other areas.
100%. And so yeah, definitely moderation and asking ourselves, why are we doing this? Are we still trying to escape? I think that's the difference. If we're trying to escape, no matter what we're doing, it's unhealthy, because I don't think God wants us to need to escape from what we're going through. So, because I was aware of life, now there's ups and downs, and we have, oh my gosh, we had new babies, right? We had our oldest was only, how old was Clint?
I think he was like 1.5.
1.5 years old. And then our newest one was just born at the very month that I started going to different programs and working on this and digging deep. So the stress of no sleep and crying babies that don't tell you what they want, right? Because their only form of communication is to cry and scream. And then, we had stressful things in our house going on at the time, and it was just a mess. And so I started eating potato chips. Man, potato chips never tasted so good in my life. Unfortunately, I'm not an alcoholic or a drinker, but I would buy a bottle of wine, and my wife was like, "Babe, it's 2:00." I'm like, "I know. I just don't talk to me," I'm thankful that in the middle of that, I would normally pour a glass. I'd have 2 sips, and I would just dump it down the drain. I'm like, I don't want this. I want to learn how to cope, But then I would go from the wine glass to the couch, and I'd turn on Netflix, and I would just sit in front of some, appropriate show, but just sit there and watch 4 shows and go, no, I'm just trying to escape again. And so you had this man who, in my opinion, was almost like in a 12-year-old mindset, because what I've learned is when you start using porn to cope with life, it limits your ability to mature. And so I never learned how to mature and go, there are undesirable events going on in life, and that doesn't mean that I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And so for me to learn that, it was months and months of learning how to get out of bed. I mean, just days I didn't want to get out of bed, and days where I go, babe, I gotta go. And she's like, okay, go. And of course I'm going in a healthy way. I have no cash or cards on me. I have no internet access. So I'm just needing space, but I don't know. And I didn't know for a while just how to healthily process life. I mean, gosh, if I had a guy's number, I was going to call him. I called every guy that I knew, just, I need to talk right now. And I've left 10-minute voicemails, and just trying to figure out how to process life was not easy.
Just for you, I think the thing we've used a few times is just trying to find some equilibrium inside. And Charity, for you, just describe, like I say, how things, they, in one sense, they didn't get immediately better, and sometimes there was 1 step forward, 2 steps back with you.
It's so funny, because I think that when we all of a sudden when we both individually made the decision that we were both going to start working on ourselves, I think we thought in the back of our head, once we commit to this, it's going to be great. Our marriage is going to go back to normal, and it's going to fix everything. And it's just going to be smooth sailing. And little did we know that we both were just in a healing process, and we didn't realize what it was going to take. I think we just say, sign up and you're going to be fixed. And I think for me, it was a rude awakening, because I remember in the very beginning, when he started doing his programs and stuff and going to therapy, I remember being like, okay, well now like start pursuing me, like start treating me like the wife that I deserve to be. Because you've caused me all this pain. You've caused me all this hurt. Like, I expect you to make me dinner, clean the house, massages, flowers. And no joke, I bought 2 books, marriage books, pursuit books, because I wanted him to read them to learn how to now pursue me and treat me right. And little did I know that he couldn't even, his capacity was already so full, because for the first time, like he said, he was learning how to cope through emotions. And to go back on that analogy of, 2 people in a car accident, well, those 2 people are now in the hospital, and they're getting worked on surgically. And now I can't expect to look at my husband on the bed, the surgery bed, and go, okay, hey, you ready to go on a date night next week? That's so unrealistic. Unfortunately, I mean, I didn't know that, at the time. I didn't realize the severity of how much damage was done for both of us. And I can only speak like this from our experience. But I think it was this realization that, hey, it's going to take time, and I would rather sobriety and freedom and growth than lies and shame and all of those nasty cycles of sin that we get into when we're not being fully transparent. And we had to learn intimacy all over. We had to learn how to have a healthy marriage bed. I mean, all of that stuff is not pretty. It's not something that, all of a sudden just gets fixed once you start a program or therapy. And so it was like we were newly married. We were starting fresh. We were starting over. We didn't want the old roots. We needed to dig up the roots and start all over again. But I would rather have that. And even though there were some hard days where I remember crying, holding my newborn, just thinking like, God, like, I want my old husband back, but I didn't, because I didn't know the severity of how serious this was going to be, how much grieving there was going to be, because there was grieving on both of our ends. And it was just hard work. It's hard to deal with lots of strong emotions. But at the end of the day, I knew that God was going to give me the strength to be able to push forward, and that I would rather have a transformational marriage that we could not just survive, but we could thrive.
Absolutely. Well, I'd love at some point, not today, but another time, I'd love to have you come on, Clinton, and talk more about this whole idea of intimacy disorder and what it's meant for you. But I want to end, Charity, talking about, because I think my heart is, obviously there seems to be way more help and support out there for the guys.
Yeah.
And I would love you just to share. And I, to be honest, I listened to your podcast and you said really quickly a couple books or resources that you had used, and I couldn't catch them. And I'd love you to go back and just say, if you were going to outline a bit of a first steps, some breadcrumbs for directions for women to turn who are exactly in the place that you've described. Can you give just practically maybe a book or a resource or something? I'm gonna end by having you talk about what the two of you do, but just kind of a book or resource that you found helpful as you were trying to navigate your own healing independently of where Clinton was at.
Yeah, I would love to. I overwhelmed myself with education, and so, but it was so healing for me. It was what I needed. It was part of my story, and one of the books I would say for sure that I feel like every woman could pick up is your Understanding Your Sexually Addicted Spouse. Right. And because it just helped me understand that I wasn't the issue, that I wasn't the problem, that it wasn't about me. It was just Clinton and his addiction. And then it just focused on two separate people. And so Your Sexually Addicted Spouse.
Who's the author? I've got that on my bookshelf. Yeah. I have not cracked it. I'm sorry.
Marcia Means and Barbara. It's two authors. So it's Marcia Means and Barbara Stevens.
Okay.
And both of them, are incredible. It's an amazing book. And it really it talks about betrayal trauma, and it talks about codependency and how they're two separate things. You may be codependent, but you also may have trauma. And I love that, because I think a lot of people tend to put the betrayed just right into the box of codependency. And I didn't relate to codependency. I related more to betrayal trauma. I had more symptoms of betrayal trauma with triggers and things like that I needed to understand to be able to move forward for my healing. Right. And so the book really helped me educate myself on those topics. So that would be a huge book. And then I would just say one other thing, if I could, is not a book, but it would be for that women would just share it with someone that they feel safe, because I think we think that we are protecting our husbands, but in reality, we are enabling them, and it is going to bring so much more healing for us if we're able to share our hurt and our pain with one other person that we feel safe and who genuinely wants to be with us, because they're just going to listen and they're going to love you, and it's just going to, who knows what's going to happen from that conversation, but that in itself, that conversation is going to bring so much healing that I wish I would have done. Because once I started bringing the darkness to the light, then God could start intervening and bringing healing to our story and my story and our relationship.
Okay. Those are very helpful. I want to, can I say something? I'm going to speak it out on behalf of a few guys, but I want your honest, I really need your honest help here, Charity, because I think I understand this word trauma, betrayal trauma, but I'm just saying for guys, that is a hard word sometimes for guys to accept. Okay. I'm going to say the unmentionable here, in that if I have traumatized you, then that kind of makes me sound like, okay, here's the even worse word, the A word. not an a-hole, but an abuser.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys go, I am not willing to accept that there's a real resistance to this word. Now, guys might not say that publicly, but I'm speaking out the inner thoughts of some guys.
Yeah.
In terms of, can you explain this word trauma in a way that might help me or on behalf of other guys who are resistant to that word? And I'm really putting you on the spot because I didn't tell you that was one of the questions, but maybe you could help too, Clinton. Yeah.
Well, I think I would love for you actually to share, because it was really hard for him. I remember telling him the things I was reading and he was just not understanding. And he was like, I don't understand why you can't even move past it. I mean, he'd come home with chips and he'd be like, why can't you just acknowledge what I've done and affirm me? And
those aren't potato chips. Those are
no
different kind of chips. Yeah. The sobriety chips.
Sobriety chips. Okay.
All that.
Yes. And I remember just him I'm like, just please read this book.
Yeah.
Just learn what I'm learning and then let's talk about it. And so he did. And I would love for you to share the analogy that you read in that book.
Sure. One real quick thing. Yeah, I think it's really important, like you say, Vern, for the guys to get educated. Education creates compassion. And I think that's what's lacking in most couples' restoration process. Like you say, a lot of guys are getting healed from pornography addiction. Women are trying to find more help. That's, I feel like there's more things out there that are being created. We're excited about doing that. But there's a lack of coming together. And, I'll never forget that she handed me that book and she goes, you got to read this. And she would kind of like star pages and kind of like dog ear the pages and, lay it under my pillow. Right. So what is it? But I remember reading a story, and it was the story of somebody getting hijacked in the car. And I'm assuming that's what you were talking about. Right. And so, let's pretend that a woman were to get in a car and she were driving home from the supermarket, and all of a sudden there's somebody in her back seat, pulls a gun out and attempts to hijack her and the car. And by some way, this guy, she does some miraculous thing and escapes the captor's intentions.
Right.
Well, it's acceptable that if that was our wife, we would understand that every time she got in the car, she thoroughly walked around the back. She looked under the car, because it was such a traumatic experience that she had. We would never expect her to drive a car again without even looking in the back seat, or to, and then there's the thing that, if you're driving, then all of a sudden a tree casts a shadow in the back seat. We would expect for her to go, oh my gosh, and to tense up and to grip the wheel tightly and to even maybe pull over on the side and just breathe for a moment and go, okay, wait, I already checked the back seat. That was simply a tree that put a shadow in the back seat. There is no person back there. Right. And I think that we don't realize that is what happens to our wives. When we tell them that we have messed up with porn, that we have used another woman to gratify something that is supposed to only belong to her. Right. There's a covenant that's created, and we're supposed to be you and you only. And now what's gone on is if a woman has discovered porn or an inappropriate image or a text message from another woman that's inappropriate or anything like that, that is automatically traumatic. Automatically, wait, what? I'm going through something I'm not supposed to go through. You're not supposed to get in your car and worry about somebody holding a gun to your head while you drive home to your kids from the supermarket. You're not supposed to get married and understand that someone's committed to you for life and then discover that they're using other women and other tools to really experience a connection that's supposed to exist in the bond of marriage. Yeah. And so what that does is it creates a traumatic experience, and we don't get it like, hey, I just looked at porn real quick, but I actually got off of it. Or, hey, I didn't masturbate this time. Or, I looked at it real quick, but I didn't go to a strip club, so that's better. But what's happening is there is an underlying trigger there. There is hurt and there is pain that now exists, and it's going to take time for her to heal from that. And I had to read those books and educate myself on betrayal and trauma experiences, because I agree, Vern, it's hard to accept that those are things I did to my wife. For a long time, I was in denial. In fact, that's really when healing started for me, was when I was able to agree with the pain that I had caused Charity.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Thank you, you guys. That helps a lot. And that's right there, the price of admission. Tell us a little bit about, the two of you, what are you guys stepping into in terms of your ministry, and I'd love to hear, because I know there's people out there that are listening to this story and go, you know what, I need to connect with you and find some of the resources that you have. So can you guys just share a little bit about what you're doing and the website and the podcast and just kind of what you're stepping into? It's so exciting.
Yeah. We have a website you can go check out. It's restoredtomore.com. We have individual stories on there, a video format of my side, his side, our story, and then just the reason why we believe it's so important to get educated. Now the Restored to More, I think that the 2 is a number 2, right? Yes. Thank you. Yes, it's www.restored2more.com. Okay. And then we have a podcast. You can stream on almost every platform, Pandora, Spotify, Apple, you name it. It's also called Restored and then number 2 More. And and we just are launching. You want to share?
Yeah, so we're really excited because it's been expanding ministry. We feel like our podcast was awesome, but people need more than just to hear stories. They need really somebody to come alongside the journey. One thing that Charity and I wish we had was another couple that would say, us too, we get it. Yeah. And for Charity and I, what we're offering now is we're offering one-on-one coaching. We're putting on different seminars. We're actually doing our first in-person workshop October 24th here in Orange County. Yeah. And again, the purpose is we're not therapists. We don't want to pretend to ever be, counselors in this area. We're not certified as far as that goes. But what we are is just a story of overcoming, and we're just here to relate to people. A lot of our education is really educating people on what other resources are out there. We are co-authoring our first book right now, kind of telling our story, ingrained with snippets of wisdom and things that we've learned. We're writing some workbooks that are going to come. But right now, our resources are coaching. We're doing speaking engagements for organizations that believe that we could add insight on these topics. And the workshop and the podcast, the Instagram, Facebook is there for inspiration. We do vlogging on YouTube. So like a little 5-minute videos, we release those every week just on short topics, just a couple nuggets there to encourage people and help them along their journey.
Yeah. You could follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Again, it's the same name. So Restored 2 More.
Cool. Well, again, thank you, Clinton. Thank you, Charity Munoz, something like that. And it's great to have you on the podcast, and blessings on you guys. And we're so excited to have people connect with you, couples and women as well. So again, thanks for joining us.
Of course. Thank you.
And right back to you, Vern. Just want to say you're doing a great work, and your listeners are very much impacted in a positive way. And I just want to tell you, keep up the good work. God is blessing it. Thank you for having us.
Cool. Thanks, guys.